It's mano a mano, brother against brother in this Super Bowl 57 rematch between the Eagles and the Chiefs, and we're kicking it off right now on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. It is Eagles week, or like we call it around here, rematch week. Downing your bigger brother. That's what we're talking about today as we get into Chiefs versus Eagles coming up next Monday night. Big game in the NFL stratosphere. We're brought to you today by Jase Medical, where you can get 5 powerful antibiotics to help you whenever you feel the need arise. It's a full year supply. You can treat up to 50 plus infections. You can get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. We have a ton to go over. What does the Chiefs defense have to do against this particular foe? Coming back, getting the offense cooking. We'll talk about Andy Reid's comments today, but it is the Kelce on Kelce Bowl, and we all look forward to that one. We're going to have all our takes today. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com, and RGR Football, together with my partner, Chris Clark of KC Chiefs Corner, where you can get it in the action on the cap, everything related to the Chiefs in terms of how they go about their team building and what's going on this season. Thanks for making us your first listen tonight as we get ready for the Eagles. Please make another Locked On show your next listen, whether it's the Eagles show itself, the Locked On NFL, the draft show, whatever you're into. We're here 5 days a week plus for all of you, and that's across the network for free on every platform, starting here on YouTube, where you can like and sub and hit that bell, as well as Spotify and Apple and all the audio platforms for free. You everydayers already know that. So if you want to be an everydayer and support us on the daily, that is the Locos. You can do that by subscribing, as well as hitting the text line at 816-357-8781. Now, this is probably the highlight of what our preseason look was at this schedule, because you always want to see a Super Bowl rematch, and this one just happens to be a little bit more special because it isn't the fact that Big Brother went and retired. He's back, and he's coming back after Travis Kelce. Jason, the older brother, I think kind of runs the biggest sports podcast in the world, and nothing against Travis, but, you know, there's a little competition there. There's a little competition on the field. Jason's up for Sexiest Man Alive or something like that, and Travis is doing his Taylor thing. Like, there's a lot of competition between these two, and they headline this matchup top to bottom, and really there isn't any other better way to do it than offense on offense, right?
Right, and you look at this game, and it's going to be huge for both teams. We kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday, and just a really quick update. Baltimore lost. Bengals lost. We're sitting in the catbird seat when it comes to the number 1 seed in the AFC, and it really does matter. This loss is not going to matter when it comes to, the other teams in the AFC, because it is not a non-conference game. If they happen to lose this game, it's not going to hurt them like it would losing the next week to the Raiders or anybody else in the AFC. But this weekend played out great for Kansas City in the number 1 seed in the AFC. So I think you got to feel pretty good about it. And the Buffalo Bills still play tonight against the Broncos.
Yeah, I have to think so. And we'll see what happens there. Always a little bit of a twist and turn. And Buffalo is certainly somebody else to keep an eye on. Broncos haven't gotten the better of the Chiefs once this time. You never know what they could pull off. But it doesn't take away from next Monday night's matchup and getting to that point. And I think what we see as a commonality between these teams is that the Kelce brothers are driving the leadership aspect. Yes, they both have quarterbacks that are leaders. Clearly, Patrick Mahomes is the best player in this league. That's never going to be overshadowed. But when you get to like the mano-a-mano kind of thing, and it is brother on brother, especially knowing that somebody just lost a championship the last time that these two teams and two brothers met, that just amps it up a little bit. And coming off of the bye, I feel like both these teams are going to be primed, maybe more so than we ever see coming off of the bye, just to get into this action and try for the Eagles to take back what they feel that they lost, and for the Chiefs to say, listen, we're not firing all cylinders so far this season. We're going to get right against you.
Yeah, the big problem for Kansas City in this regard is that the Eagles have been waiting for this game since the schedule came out. Kansas City's been waiting for this game ever since they went on the bye week. That's a big difference. The Eagles have had this date circled. They want the rematch. They're both coming off buys. If one was coming off a bye and the other wasn't, that'd be an advantage to the team that was coming off a bye. But in this case, they're both coming off their bye weeks. They're both set up with the same amount of off time. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. But
I think
Kansas City should be ready for this one.
Bear with just a second, please.
All right. And Ryan is struggling with his headphones, so it's going to be just a moment. But yeah, it's going to be something to watch. This game is going to be something that I am really looking forward to. I think Kansas City is going to be ready for it. Andy Reid talked about it on Monday about how there is things in all three phases of the team that they have to work on and they have to get better at. And I do think that that's something that they're going to continue to do. And just as a quick aside, Patrick Mahomes is also on the meeting cast tonight before Monday Night Football. If you're watching this before that goes off, so going to be fun to see that.
Just something extra to give you a
Right.
little bit more viewing pleasure, right? Yeah, that's the way that it goes. I think the big thing for me is we're going to talk about some of the matchups. We're going to start looking at that today, folks. Tomorrow we'll have Matt Derrick on here, a report from the facility as well and that kind of thing. But this is such a big game. We got to take a step back at it. And it's about motivation for both these teams. I still see a very, very good case for expecting both these teams to go back to the Super Bowl. So it's not just about last season. It's about what they show you this week, what you can learn about their new personnel on each team, because there are a number of rookies that are playing for both squads, and how you can apply that later when you expect to meet them again.
Yeah. And you also have guys that have come in, obviously the veterans that have come in that Kansas City didn't have last time in the Super Bowl, and the Philadelphia Eagles have them as well. So it's going to be something that's going to be interesting to watch. Again, we kind of talked about this in our preview show yesterday's show, talking about this game just a little bit. The big change here is Kansas City's defense is much better than it was in the Super Bowl. The Eagles' defense, I think, is worse than they were in the Super Bowl. How is that going to play into this game? And we're going to actually have an extra day this week because we will have the crossover on Thursday like normal. We're not going to be doing our preview on Friday, and we'll be doing our preview on Monday. So we're going to have even more coverage for you coming on this Philadelphia Eagles game this week.
Might have a few loops to throw at you on Friday, folks, so make sure that you hit that one. Now, I want to talk about Chiefs offense against that Eagles defense and what we can see from both squads. We're going to do that on the backside of this after we tell you about our friends from Jase. We do spend a lot of time together here, and whether it's for you and I talking football, wins, losses, and the whole 9 yards, or whether you're trying to get your family squared away, I'm thankful for that connection and for what we have to tell you about today, because whether you're going on an extended trip or you're just trying to take care of your family for whatever may come, major weather or anything else, our partners at Jase Medical have something for you. It's life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications that can be pre-ordered in a 1-year supply inside of what is known as a Jase case. Comes pre-packaged, all populated, so you have one go-to medical kit. You can order it right now online at jasemedical.com and receive your 12-month supply of daily medication. Remember, you got to use our promo code LOCKEDON to get that. It's at the checkout, and you'll get a hefty discount as well. Folks love this because you can get that service all at once. It cuts through some of the supply chain issues. A lot of folks that don't have that kind of kit always on hand, it gives you that sense of security. And I know that mine comes in handy. Prices are lower on it than there are in local pharmacies, so you save money as well. It's highly recommended from everyone. If you choose, or you have someone that you love that you want to get the peace of mind by having this year supply of any daily med, go to jasemedical.com and see if it's offered for you. Remember, you can use the promo code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your purchase at Jase Medical. That's JASE medical.com. Key matchup for me is always going to be anybody who plays with Patrick Mahomes on that side of the football versus whoever tries to stop him. Pretty straightforward. But to say that this offensive engine has been running rough lately is probably putting it very, very mildly. I thought Andy had a couple of comments that we need to address today, but just in your vast experience, having covered this team for going on 8 years now, bye week's a pretty good thing for this roster, isn't it?
It's very good. And I think Andy's 27-3 coming out of bye week over his time with the Eagles and the Chiefs, and going into the Super Bowl as well. I think it's around 27-3. So he's very good coming out of a bye. Problem is you're in a situation where the other team just got a bye. It's a little bit different, takes a little bit of the advantage away. But the other thing to watch here, and something that is going to be, I think, a very big key in this game, is going to be the offensive line versus the Eagles' defensive line, because that is one thing that the Eagles did not feel like went their way in the Super Bowls. They couldn't get after Patrick. They didn't sack him once. And now you have two better tackles, I think, than you had in the Super Bowl. But they're not playing up to the offensive line isn't playing up to the level that I think that they really want to play, even though they've allowed the least amount of sacks in the NFL.
And that's really what it comes back to, is it's all relative. Least amount of sacks, that's significant, yet we can pick apart things that have cost opportunities. It's about the upside to me. It's what we haven't been able to see that is left on the table. Everybody talks about making sure you put it all out there on the field every week. Well, things have been left out there all season long. And one of the guys that I feel is particularly important to this, there are two guys that scored on the Eagles and quite frankly gave them a lasting taste in their mouth of this defeat from this previous Super Bowl. One is Sky Moore. I want to touch on him briefly in a minute. But first is Kadarius Toney, and we've talked a bunch about what's going on with him. What's the big question mark? Well, Andy kind of came around on his Monday presser today and let us know that, yes, indeed, it is just that. That surgery was more significant than when we originally thought, and they're protecting him, and they're just letting him come in and play a tiny role in order to get him through the season. And I think that, A, that's smart. B, it's what we had theorized was going on. And B, that has to, or C, has to be something that you plan for him for 20 games, not 17. So as frustrating it is, it makes more sense now, and I'm glad that it's confirmed, but does it take anything away from you for where this offense is?
Absolutely. And I think it takes it away from him as well, because he's not going to be in the same situation that he would have been if he would have been getting 20 snaps a game and getting 5 or 6 targets a game. Obviously, the risk injury goes up, but the problem is you cannot get in a situation where you think he's going to play 7 or 8 snaps a game for the next several games and then go in and when the playoffs get here, play 20, 25 snaps and get 5 or 6 targets or get 7 or 8 targets. You can't put him in that position. That's not a great position for the player, for one. And two, you're setting him up to get injured. He's a guy that needs to be getting those reps. He needs to be building up he needs to be building up stamina and getting ready for the load that you're winning in the playoffs. And he really hasn't been doing that. And I know that seems silly a little bit because they practice and they do all this other stuff, but you cannot practice at game speed. Game speed is always different. Playoff speed is always different than game speed. And if they're saving him for the playoffs for the most part, he's going to be behind the 8 ball going before you even get to the playoffs.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Have to do what you can to bring that along. Now, Sky Moore's been in a much different situation, has been performing as well as we'd hope, but he has been very active. And so I think that maybe this is the turning point. They're going, I think, especially when Sky is split out wide, they're going to attempt to be as physical as they can with him. That just makes sense after what he did previously. They've adjusted their rules because it was a scheme attack that allowed both Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore to score in that Super Bowl. It was not a physical dominance there. That was scheme. But in order to get the ball out, you have to be able to protect long enough. And like you said, that front in Philly is formidable. We're going to talk more about the matchups specifically later in the week, but I do want to just highlight this. Hassan Reddick has been on a tear for the Eagles. Of the 9 games they've played, 5 of them he has broken 5 pressures. 5 of them. He is coming. But the good thing is I reviewed his snaps, and he is playing dominantly on the left. He is not barely playing on the right-hand side of the defense. So that means it is going to be Hassan Reddick versus Juwan Taylor. Unless they do something and try to get that matchup against Donovan Smith specifically. I expect that to be an idea, but I don't expect that to be the bulk of what happens. So you have athleticism on athleticism. The most athletic offensive lineman on this roster is Juwan Taylor. And we know that he's got that snap count dialed in. I don't feel like this is a terrible matchup. We'll talk more specifically during the week. This is probably the highlight of it, but I don't think it's necessarily a giant negative for the Chiefs.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Hassan Reddick. I'm not so sure that they're not going to flip him in this game to try to get him against Donovan Smith. I just think that makes more sense than having him go up against probably the better of the 2 tackles. The Donovan Smith pitched a shutout last week. I don't think allowed a single pressure, didn't allow a single sack. Not last week, but when they last played. Mm-hmm. So that's important to point out. He was playing really well. You said something about Sky Moore, and I didn't get to mention this really quick. I really do like what they did, and they brought him out of the backfield on 1 snap. I'd like to see him get 2 or 3 of those snaps a game, maybe even 2 or 3 a half. See what you can get coming out of the backfield for him, getting him off the line of scrimmage and changing the way that they're having to look at him as a route runner And it doesn't matter to me if he's only getting 5 or 6 yards on those catches. That's still moving the change. That's still doing exactly what we've talked about and keeping yourself ahead of the sticks. That's exactly what you need to do. And if that's the way he gets involved in the offense, use him that way.
Yeah. I am 100% with you there. The question is going to be, how do they do against the run? And I think that's something we're going to talk more in depth tomorrow and on Friday about where do you get that balance in? Can you beat up that defensive front of the Eagles by using Isaiah Pacheco? Maybe even see Pirine gets back onto the field. I was surprised that he got touches. We'll see where Clyde's at and how they choose to go about using that.
But they didn't use him in a good way. In my mind, I didn't think they put him in a good situation for success. I mean, they didn't give him the right type of carries. They didn't get him on the field in good situations. And the one pass attempt that he got thrown his way was never a chance to get actually completed. So if you're going to put him in there, you need to use him in the right sense. And I think that they're doing a disservice to use guys in that sense.
I agree with you, and I think they will remedy that. I hope that we get to see him again because I'd like a little bit more of a 1, 2, 3, 4 punch at the running back spot to kind of beat up that front. But the opposite is true as well. Chiefs defense has been playing great, but they have a big hurdle coming at them. We're going to get to that on the backside of this.
Score early this NFL offseason or this NFL season with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Lots of different odds out there right now. Chiefs are +3 for this next coming game against the Eagles. In tonight's game, the Bills are -7.5, over and under at 47.5 in that game. And there's a really interesting bet going on for the Bengals and the Ravens coming up and over and unders on Thursday night's game. Something to watch there because that's a huge game for the Bengals and the Ravens in this playoff hunt. Something to watch and go check that out. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, overs and unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Offense for the Eagles has been dominated by one story, and I am tired of talking about Jalen Hurts tush push. It's just getting old at this point. There are more things to this Eagles offense, and I think the Chiefs defense has stood up drastically well, more so than they've outplayed themselves more so than any other season that we've covered this team, in my opinion, on the defensive side of the ball to this point in the season. I don't know what the status is going forward of Nick Bolton. They're going to get him back at some point. I don't know if it's going to be this week. It doesn't feel like it to me.
Can't be. So
it leads you to move forward with your second best linebacker at middle, obviously with Chris Jones, obviously with Trent McDuffie, with Jerry Sneed, and Justin Reed in the back. Everybody but the linebacker level. But that linebacker level is important. How much of a discipline is it to have to be able to withstand the run game from the Eagles, who maybe isn't as formidable as it was last year, but without Nick Bolton, how do you see this?
Well, without Nick Bolton, it's going to be really tough for this defense to stop the run. And, you know, we talked about this in our show yesterday, and I think I've said this multiple times going into this game. When you look ahead at the Eagles, the big question and the big thing you have to make sure of is you've got to keep them in 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, maybe even 3rd and 4. But if you get them in a situation where they could do tush push 2 plays in a row on 3rd and 4th down, they're probably going to continue to move the ball. You have to keep them behind the sticks. It's more important to keep them behind the sticks if you're going to stop them on defense than really it is for Kansas City to stay ahead of the sticks almost. It's just one of those things. If you get them in a situation where you allow them to do the tush push, that's going to be a problem. I think what's the conversion rate right now? 92%, something like that. I mean, it's just something ridiculous that they're converting, and not necessarily it's not 92% getting the first down. It's 92% on getting yardage, and you're getting a first down most of the time when you're running on a 4th down. It may be 3rd and 2, but if you're past 3rd and 2, then it's a little bit of a different issue. You're still getting yardage though. Something to watch. I think that if Kansas City can keep them behind the sticks early in 1st and 2nd down, that's really going to help them on 3rd down and get in a situation where they're not going to be in the tush push situation. But the other question that I have going into this game is, how aggressive is their coach going to be? How aggressive is Sirianni going to be when they get near the goal line? I would imagine that if they get inside the 20, they're probably going to be going for it as long as it's a down and distance that is favorable, like third and four or fourth and 4 or less. I think that they're probably going to go for it. Even if they can't do the tush push, I expect them to be aggressive.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And they're coming off of a week against the Dallas Cowboys that they didn't run as well as they have. DeAndre Swift has been their bell cow at this point. Yep. He has more rushing yards than Isaiah Pacheco does. He was pretty bottled up and had a couple of fumbles in their last ball game. Kenneth Gainwell gained some good yards on average, but it wasn't a high volume. They still ran for, what was it? Looks like 25 snaps. That's a significant portion that the Chiefs defense is going to have to defend. Luckily, I do feel like defending DeAndre Swift is something that the Chiefs, with their overall team speed, is capable of doing. We'll talk more about that specifically coming on later in the week. But I want to lay something out because Travis Kelce leads his team in receiving yards at 597. Devontae Smith has 533, and he's number 2 on that roster. This is about A.J. Brown, and that comes into Snead, Watson, Williams. Those are the 3 keys to slowing that man down and having safety help over the top, because while he's not a deep threat per se, he's a physical beast that they have to match up and bring their best physical game with.
I don't disagree with you. I think that that's going to be a huge matchup. When you start looking at how this game is going to play out, they could take a little bit of what they did in the Dolphins game. And what I mean by that is, with all the different pressures that they threw at Tua, they can throw some of that at Jalen, but they can also throw some of the different coverages. I think that's what Spagnuolo has done so well of this year, is mixing up coverages, mixing up at the line of scrimmage, making it to where they can't tell what is coming. And that's going to help against a guy like A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown, I've said this multiple times, is easily a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL for me. And if I had time to think about it, maybe even top 3. But he is definitely way up there. And when you start looking at that passing defense or passing offense, it's going to be, you have to stop A.J. Brown. I think they're actually going to be without Goddard this week. I think he went out on IR a couple weeks ago, so I think he's out. As far as Nick Bolton is concerned, you mentioned him earlier. He has only been out 2 games. This will be game number 3. He still needs to be out 1 more game at least. In the bye week does not count. It's 4 games, not 4 weeks. It's 4 games.
That's where I was confused earlier.
So it would still be, after I think they play the Raiders next. So it would be the week after the Raiders that he could return. But they said it was a 2-month injury possibly. So it could still be middle of December before he gets back.
Yeah, it's within the realm of possibility. So this is what you have. And I'm more than comfortable with Drew Tranquil, as we talked about yesterday. It is more about how do you adapt yourselves to fit against this offense in Philadelphia. And it really does come down to A.J. Brown in the pass game. Devonta Smith, I'm comfortable with. Yes, he got a speed advantage on Trent McDuffie? He does. But it's not drastic. And the way that Trent's been playing, I do feel like that's going to be something that they can manage. Is he going to get a play or 2? Sure. He's honestly a guy that started the season slow and has been clearly yesterday was frustrated. So I think you're able to get it, Devonta Smith, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, and you probably can. And the other thing I will say is, look at what they did against Justin Jefferson several weeks ago. Obviously, Hurts is a better quarterback than you have in Cousins, but Jefferson is arguably better than A.J. Brown, and they were able to shut down Jefferson for the most part. Now, obviously, you have different weapons. It's not the same thing. None of it is, but I think that they're in a situation where they can probably game around A.J. Brown and get him to slow down at least to an extent. I was going to be happy with Jefferson getting, maybe 100 yards and a touchdown. I would have been happy with that, but they shut him down to 33 yards, I think, on 3 catches, and that's phenomenal. So if you get to a situation where you can hold A.J. Brown under 75 yards and a touchdown, and just 1 touchdown, I think you got to feel like you've done a very good job against him. And one other thing I will say about Bolton coming back, I agree with you. I feel good about Tranquil in this game. I really wish they would have Nick Bolton against the Raiders this next week, though. Yeah. I think that's going to be a big issue against Josh Jacobs.
I agree with you, and I can completely understand that. We'd love to know how you guys feel. Put your comments down below on the rewatch here. If you're in the live chat, we appreciate you very much. Thank you for your questions. We didn't get to them today, but don't go away yet, because we have something special. We've got a 24-hour channel coming for Locked On, and we're going to send you to there on a direct link after this show concludes. So hold on and see what else is going on around the Locked On network, because we have every team covered for you, including the Philadelphia Eagles. So we hope that you'll enjoy that. Now, coming up tomorrow, we have Matt Derrick coming in from the facility, having been there and seen the guys in person. We'll see where everybody's at. He will have great insight for us, as he does every single week. We also will then have the coverage of the Eagles on Thursday. Friday, we're going to give you not just our extended look at matchups and plans. We'll also give you a couple of, I think, some fun items that I think you'll enjoy being there. So make sure, if you're not a Friday watcher, join us Friday. And then Monday will be the preview show before the ballgame.
Yeah, and just a quick heads up, I don't know, are they practicing? I don't know that they're practicing tomorrow. So a little bit of a different change of pace with everything. So it's possible that you're not going to get any kind of practice report, because I believe they're going to be practicing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, since it's a Monday game. So just know that out there. A little bit of a different scenario about what we'll be talking about, but we got you covered for the week.
Absolutely. So you'll have the preview show for Monday, and then the Tuesday show will just be a little bit delayed, because we will hold it for post-game live, as we always do, live for you after the ball game. So hang in with us there. It's going to be a fun week. There's going to be a ton of chatter about everything Kelce and everything Eagles. So we're looking forward to it. We hope you are too. Enjoy the rest of your evening and Monday Night Football. We appreciate you being with us tonight, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.